I volunteered after Hurricane Katrina in New Orleans, and there was something there that still scares me to this day. Okay, here it goes. I have a medical background and a certification I rarely use, though I keep going back and paying to renew it. Anyhow, I volunteered almost immediately, thinking I could help those who had lived through Katrina. That was not the case. There were a few of us who were assigned once the water started to recede, to find houses that had dead bodies in them. If you ever had to do dead body recovery when it's been lying around in the heat and the water for days, sometimes weeks at a time, you know how it smells. It does sort of smell like any other carcass, but worse. I can't explain it. Maybe somehow sweeter smelling? Anyways, the key to not vomiting when you smell it is Vicks under and around the bottom of your nose. It doesn't keep all the smell out, but enough until you can at least tolerate the smell without vomiting. We had to go to each house and go inside in wading boots and look for bodies. Many of them had washed out to sea, but some were still in the houses they lived in prior to the hurricane. If we found a body, we spray painted a big X on the outside of the house. This other guy and I had been doing it for a while, and we got assigned to each other almost every day. We got along okay, and he didn't vomit at the ones that had been gotten to. We came up to this one old shack. I say shack because it was pretty run down and in what had been a very bad neighborhood. Right away, I got chills down my spine. I knew there was something really wrong here. Not like find a body kind of wrong, but chilling kind of wrong. New Orleans has certain areas that just give off these vibes, and my understanding is there's a lot of voodoo practice in certain areas. Anyway, against everything my body was screaming at me, we went into the house. The first thing I could smell was a body. The second was something earthy and almost moldy. I looked at my partner, I will call him Jay. He was white as a sheet. I could tell he was getting the same feeling I had been getting. It was obvious from the weird bones hanging down from the ceiling. I would bet they were cats. Something odd had been going down in the house, as well as strange beads and carvings in the bare wood in the walls. We went into what was once a kitchen, and there chained to a beam was an old lady, or what was left of her. She had chained herself by the wrists to the beam. Her guts were falling out on the floor. The creepiest thing was, her face still looked as though she were alive, and staring at us with a wicked smile, showing only partial teeth. They were nubs. My skin started crawling as goosebumps spread over my body, and then my neck hair stood up. Suddenly, I heard the most unearthly cackling noise I've ever heard in my life, and my flight or fight kicked in. Jay and I noped out of there. We quickly painted an X and literally ran to the next house. Now, I don't know if that old lady had practiced voodoo or whatever, but that scared the ever-living shit out of me. It still gives me nightmares. The people I feel sorry for are the ones who had to take that crazy lady out of there. Jay and I discussed it that night after we went back to our hotels north of there. He had heard the cackling too, but we both just said it had to be the wind or something. I used to work as a host for a restaurant. Well, after working there for a while, I became amazing friends with almost all of the waiters/cook staff. I just graduated high school, and since it was during the summer, I didn't have anything to do. So one night, at closing during the weekend, one of the cook staff suggested we go to this old graveyard. Mind you, this is in California, and this graveyard was not as old as other parts of the country, but it was the late 1800s old. It contained the remains of the settling family that actually founded our first school system in that town. As teenagers wanting to do something behind the same old drink at a friend's house or kickback thing, we all agreed to do it, and made preparations to meet at one of my coworkers' house. We all met around 10 during the week. The restaurant closed at 9, so we had a fair amount of time to spend. There were around 11 of us, and we all began to make preparations for the hike to this spot, which was in Los Angeles National Forest, not too far from us. Now, I remember my sister telling me, she was big into ghost shows and stuff, about this thing called an EMP. She says it uses electromagnetic waves and radio frequencies to talk to spirits, and he can ask questions and answers back. She also said she had downloaded one from her phone and it worked. I know it sounds corny and cheesy. Well, I never really believed in ghosts, but I wanted to give it a try to confirm what I had thought. Ghosts don't exist. So I tell my group of coworkers about it, and one of them downloads an app claiming to be able to talk to spirits on his phone. I know, sounds stupid. We all laughed and make jokes about it and thought nothing of it. We finally take off and head down to the forest, which was a good 30-minute drive on a single-lane road. After reaching the spot, we get to the graveyard, which looked unkempt. Here's a picture of it I found off Google. Sorry for the quality, I couldn't find any others. To the right of the photo, but unseen, is an oak tree, because the family loved oak trees. As a kid who grew up in the valley, you knew this because each one of their schools, all of which were elementary schools, had oak trees in the play yard. Well, imagine being there, 11 at night, no light source but our phones, dead silent, no animals making any noises. Frogs aren't making noises, same with the crickets. We talk silently and look at the graves to see the names of the people and the dates they'd passed away on. I decided to use the app. At first, the females in the group were hesitant because they were scared. I admit I was a bit nervous, but hey, ghosts can't be real. So we start the app and have a debate about who should ask the questions first. And of course, everyone pointed at me because I was the one who wanted to have this stupid thing in the first place. So I began shouting out questions like, "Hello? Anyone there?" And no response. Another question, "Where are you?" Not even 10 seconds passed, and the app responded with a robotic oak tree. We are dead silent, thinking maybe it has some geolocation thing installed. The graveyard wasn't on Google Maps. Because really, only locals knew about it. I continued, determined but slightly shaken to ask questions. "Who are you?" And the app would answer in the same robotic tone, "John." Of course, the next thing you know, a girl screams. She points at the gravestone we were next to, and sure enough, the name was John Smith. I changed the name to make it hard to tell where I was born for privacy. It was on the stone. That's not even the creepiest or weirdest part. After she screamed, everyone began to talk loudly, saying to stop doing it or you're faking it, etc. Then, out of nowhere, the robotic voice goes rude. Silence followed. As everyone was scared shitless, even the guys who had to act tough in front of their girlfriends they brought, we decided to stop with the app and pray and leave the place. After reaching our car, we noticed something behind us in the distance. Now at this point, you could see the silhouette of the oak tree, all plunged into darkness. But next to it was a white mist, barely discernible with the naked eye. We ran faster than we ever could back to our cars. We got in and were doing like 80 out of there. Now, I don't know what to think of this experience because I've never had anything like it before. And I might add, I used the same app in an abandoned house we thought might be haunted before going there and nothing happened. We all stopped ghost hunting or doing creepy things after that, but yeah, that was probably the creepiest thing that's happened to me. I don't really believe in ghosts, but I still don't know what happened that night. I've been a caver in Florida for about 13 years, since I was about 6. I've been to a lot of caves. Never been afraid before this to go in one. When I was about 7 or 8 years old, I started having this reoccurring dream. I would have it at least twice a year, always the same, even though I would realize I was dreaming after the first few iterations. I would fall asleep and dream of being in a cave and going into this little hole in the bottom. Inside, I would see a 10 to 15 foot long corridor, about 2 to 4 feet high. At the end, it would turn left, and I always saw a bent red stop sign at the end, like someone ripped off the top 2 feet and tossed it. But I would always follow the corridor. I would turn and walk past the sign despite being scared, despite many times knowing what was there, and the corridor would start descending, quickly opening up into a large vertical chamber with the same path leading down in a corkscrew. Everything became blurry at this point, and it was all the same. I saw trash scattered on the walls. I saw the pit leading down to a curved floor. I saw things undefined, animals or people or something at the bottom. I saw my family, each with one of the things being tortured and killed. Every time I could never do anything. After I saw that, I'd be stuck for a few seconds till I felt more than I saw. Everything turned and looked at me, and I would wake up. Not like a normal dream where you just drift to consciousness or a nightmare where you bolt up in fear, but like something pushed me out like I wasn't supposed to be there. So I've had this dreams multiple times a year until I turned 15. My father decided to take us to some caves we had never been before, one of which was Dog Drop. It was likely named so because someone either threw their pet in there or a coyote fell in and the body was later discovered. Dog Drop had a roughly 30-foot rappel straight down to enter. I went down with my brother while my father waited at the top. There was a big hole in the ground. I started to feel uneasy, though I didn't know why, so I followed my brother into the hole. I felt worse as I moved down, and when I looked up I saw the same corridor, the same turn, the same wall, the same bottles out the corner. And instantly I was hit with this overwhelming sense of nausea and fear and being watched, and everything was screaming at me to leave. I froze and must have made some noise because my brother turned around and asked what was wrong. I managed to say I wanted to leave now and climbed out as quickly as I could, followed immediately by my brother. We packed up and left, and I've never gone back and never will. Haven't told anyone what actually happened, just said I wasn't feeling well, and they forgot pretty quickly. The thing that really makes this creepy for me is I've never had the dream again. Year after year I would have it consistently, but it just stopped after that, but I still remember it all. And I still feel afraid, almost an external feel when I think of it.